Okay, welcome everyone to Greene County Leaders, the December session on leadership, health, and wellness. Welcome to those of you who are Greene County Leader alumni and those who are joining for a taste of Greene County Leaders. To everyone joining us now for this session and everyone who is tuning in later, we are just so glad you are here. I'm introducing myself. I'm Victoria Solom, and I'm Community Development Educator with Extension Greene County, and Cara Carper is the Executive Director with Greene County Development Corporation, and she is very much a partner. We work on Greene County Leaders together, and we are so fortunate we have a number of the board members on the Zoom today, so I know we have a number on the session. I'm going to do a quick intro to Zoom. If you see on the lower left-hand side, there's a mute, unmute option. If you are calling in on a phone, *6 will mute and unmute you. And in the lower left-hand side of the screen, there is an icon for video and turning your video on or off. If it's possible to turn your video on, please do so. We absolutely will not be judging backgrounds. Kids and pets are welcome to join. So if your internet supports having video on, that is fantastic. In the chat, let's do some quick introductions so we can get to know each other a bit. Please put your name and where you work and maybe some of the organizations you're involved with in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and do that so you can see there. So please go ahead and put some introductory pieces in the chat. That would be fantastic. I know we have some new folks joining. Special welcome to you. I want to do a quick introduction to Greene County Leaders. So Greene County Leaders is really designed to help build leadership skills and deepen understanding of community issues here in Greene County. We really also want to provide opportunities to create and expand community networks and understanding of Greene County. This program is possible through a partnership with the UW-Madison Division of Extension Greene County and Greene County Development Corporation, with strong support from lots of businesses and organizations across Greene County. This year, we are adapting and we are doing things a bit differently. We have a session every month. It is virtual and it is free. So today we are focusing on leadership and health and wellness. If you're a Greene County Leader alum, and we know a number of you are, during your year you probably learned about the great work that's being done to promote health and wellness, and you probably learned a lot about physical health. If you participated in the November virtual session this year, you probably heard updates on Greene County and COVID-19. If you missed that session, the recording is available on the Greene County Leader website, along with a lot of great resources for learning more. I do want to draw your attention to some upcoming opportunities and additional resources. I'm going to go ahead and put those in the chat. So there is a session tomorrow on Thursday, December 10 from 10 a.m. to 11:30 Central. And that is specifically about opportunities for employers to lead. I'm going to go ahead and put information in the chat if anyone's interested in that. I'm going to go ahead and ask people to mute. And Cara, if you could please mute people if they are not currently muted, that would be great. Thank you. So that upcoming session is one thing that is coming up. And I'm also going to put a link in the chat for the Wisconsin Alumni Association YouTube channel. They have a number of great panels. I'm going to put that in the chat for a link. They have a number of great panels with medical leaders and medical professionals with updates on COVID-19 in Wisconsin, including information about vaccine development and distribution. And so you have questions about those, that's a great opportunity to learn more. I also want to do a special shout out for the Greene County Healthy Communities Self-Care Bingo activity that's coming up. It's a fun opportunity, and you can like Greene County Leaders on Facebook and check that out. That's the most recent Facebook post that we've got up. We also encourage you to like Greene County Healthy Community Coalition on Facebook for more information. So check that out, try it out, and share with your friends, family, and neighbors. So today we are going to focus on mental health. When we look at
Start this off for you, Rob.
When we look at leadership, alumni, you may recall talking about the importance of emotional intelligence when it comes to effective leadership. There's a lot of overlap in the skills for emotional intelligence and mental health. And right now we know that a lot of people are experiencing a lot of challenges. In some ways, some of our challenges are very similar, and at the same time, we're experiencing challenges that may be very different from what our neighbors are experiencing. We have a common humanity, and at the same time, we really have unique experiences, unique perspectives, and unique strengths and resources. During these challenging times, we're going through a lot of difficulties, and at the same time, this is really an opportunity for growth. So today we're going to explore this growth opportunity for leaders when it comes to health and wellness, and this will be an opportunity to identify ways we can take care of ourselves, so we can help take care of our families, our teams, organizations, businesses, and communities. Today, Hannah McMunn, Health and Wellbeing Educator for Extension Greene and Lafayette counties, will kick things off with a quick session on self-awareness. It builds off of some of the previous sessions we have had this fall when looking at circle of control and circle of influence, as well as being grounded and grateful. At the same time, the focus on self-awareness is absolutely foundational to emotional intelligence. And again, that's very much a piece of effective leadership. With that, Hannah, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Victoria, and good afternoon, everyone. So we're just going to start off today by spending a bit of time paying attention to our emotions, our feelings, and our bodies. Being aware of our emotions can help key us into what we're feeling right now in this moment. And mindfulness can also help us build that awareness and support us in recentering and refocusing our attention from our very busy lives. So we're going to start off with a quick check-in with our emotions using this feelings and emotion wheel that I'm going to share here. So taking a quick look at this wheel on the screen, I just want you to spend just about 30 seconds reflecting on how you're feeling right now. I know there's a lot of things on this screen here, so if you look at the center of the wheel, you'll see some more of our basic emotions. As the wheel grows bigger and moves out to the edges, our emotions get much more complex. So take a minute just to look at that wheel, do a quick internal reflection. How am I feeling right now in this moment? Anything that you're feeling is okay, but thinking about and acknowledging our emotions are so important. If you feel called to do so, feel free to put how you're feeling right now in the chat. No one is, I'm not going to make anyone do that, but if anyone wants to share, go ahead and just put it in the chat. How are you feeling right now? And just spend the next 10 seconds reflecting on that. I can share with all of you, I'm feeling content right now. I think that's the emotion I'm feeling. I see some joy, optimistic, hopeful. I see anxious, peaceful, whole range of emotions. So thanks for taking a minute just to look at this and doing a quick reflection. I just wanted to start off our morning together, or afternoon, I suppose, with just thinking about how we're feeling right now. So I'm going to stop sharing and taking a moment to reflect on that. It is one tool that we can use to kind of recenter us. How are we feeling right now? And move forward. So there are many tools that can help us be more aware of these thoughts and emotions and keeping us in the present moment. So we are going to practice a mindfulness exercise in just a minute here. And this is called the body scan. It's something that you may have practiced before, something that you may have heard of before, and it's just one strategy or tool to help create this mind-body connection. It's only a strategy and doesn't work for everyone, but for many, it can bring very powerful benefits. For some people, this strategy can help them fall asleep at night, deal better with their pain or anxiety, control negative thoughts, or refocus on the task at hand. This activity may be easy for some and difficult for others. Know that however it feels for you is okay. Approach it with an open mind about what it might do for you and try something new. This activity might be relaxing. Don't feel guilty if you even feel like you might want to fall asleep, but try not to. As we go through this activity, you might find it difficult to keep your mind from jumping from one thing to another or wondering when this is all going to be over, and that's okay. If you catch yourself thinking about something else, simply notice it and bring yourself back to the moment. Try to avoid thinking if there's a right or wrong way of doing this, and try to let go of any critical judgments you may have about your body, pain you're having, or what this activity might do for you. So we're going to begin together, and if you'd be more comfortable for this activity, feel free to turn your video off. I will ask you to turn it back on towards the end, but I want you to feel as comfortable as possible. So if you're seated in your chair, find a comfortable position. Comfortably rest your hands in your lap. Place both feet flat on the floor. If it feels comfortable and safe, allow your eyes to close or just relax your gaze downward. Take a few seconds to feel your whole body at once from head to toe. Bring your attention to your feet. Feel how they are making contact with the floor. Feel the sense of touch or pressure. Imagine your breath traveling to your feet as you breathe in and out, in and out. Let go of your attention from your feet and bring your attention to your legs. Notice what is present in this part of your body. Feel your breath going down through your legs and relaxing the leg muscles as you breathe in and out. Next, direct your attention to your lower back. If this is a place of discomfort for you, try not to judge it or make it any different. Just be aware of it. As you breathe into your low back muscles. And as you breathe out, let go of any tension you may feel in this part of your body. Now bring your attention to your heart center, your chest. Try to feel the sensations deep in your heart center and the muscles around it. Use your breathing to bring life to this area as you breathe in and out for a few breaths. Now bring your attention up to your shoulders and neck. Take note of any tension or discomfort you may have here. And again, try not to judge it, just be aware of it. Breathe into your shoulder muscles, and as you exhale, release any tension you may be feeling here. Finally, bring your attention to your face. Notice any sensations you may have in this part of your body, and relax any tension you are carrying in your face and your jaw. Take a few breaths with full awareness and relaxation. Now bring your attention back to your body as a whole. Think of your breath moving through your entire body with all of your muscles in a state of relaxation. Enjoy being aware of the moment in stillness and peace, letting your body breathe naturally. When you are ready, slowly bring your attention back to your space, gently opening your eyes, wiggling your fingers and toes, doing any stretches that might feel good. Please turn your camera back on if it was off, and take note of how you're feeling at this point without judgment. All right, so thanks for participating in that short mindfulness practice with me. I want you just to take a minute as you're coming back to this space with all of us together to think about that feelings wheel that I shared in the beginning of my time with you and reflect on how you're feeling right now after practicing that body scan. Your feelings might be the same, they might be different. Feel free to put any feelings or reactions into the chat if you choose to do so. And while people might be entering some of those feelings or thoughts into the chat, research shows that even a short mindfulness practice, such as the one we just did, can help reduce stress, improve mood, support communication in relationships, encourage relaxation, and increase focus and attention. So we know that this is a challenging time in many of our lives with many ongoing stressors, especially on our mental health. Mindfulness is one tool that can help support our awareness in this moment. Now that we're hopefully feeling a bit more focused, I want to thank you for participating with me this afternoon, and I'm going to pass it off to Megan Schilt, the founder and clinical director from Avenues Counseling, to talk with us today about transforming adversity into leadership growth opportunities. So with that, I'll pass it off to Megan.
Thank you, Hannah. That was actually much needed on my behalf. That was a great exercise. Thank you so much for leading that. I needed to really, I get nervous when speaking. So to lead in with that was incredibly helpful. Thank you. I am going to pull up a slideshow. I want to, let me see here. Okay, share my screen and slideshow. I'm just going to get my PowerPoint up just to make sure that I can handle the technology end of this. Okay. Can everybody see my slideshow in a window? The initial title page. If hey, Hannah, you're the only one I can see. Yeah, okay. So you're shaking your, okay, thank you very much. Okay, so before I dive into this with everybody, I want to emphasize the importance of self-care as we have this conversation. We're going to be talking about how we have been impacted by the very, at times, intense amount of stress, as well as prolonged experience of stress in every part of our lives. And that can feel very uncomfortable at times. It can feel somewhat overwhelming. It can bring up some things that maybe we didn't expect to come up. And so when I say self-care, that's going to look different for all of us. And we're going to get into the details of why and how stress feels different, like the same event can feel very different to all of us from our unique lenses, and how caring for ourselves can also look very different. And so if you need, sometimes it's as simple as like, you know, I want to be here and present and part of the conversation, but I don't feel 100% comfortable being seen. Shut your video off if you'd like to kind of feel a sense of safety in being present, but not being on video. If you need to take a break and leave for a little bit and come back, it's whatever, get a drink of water. Self-care, maybe it means exiting the meeting and watching the recording later. Whatever you need, please put yourself first and do that. We will be here, we'll be sticking around at the end of the meeting for anybody who feels like maybe they were overwhelmed or just had some kind of adverse reaction to the conversation, so that we can support you in however that looks. I will also, I absolutely love connecting with people, and so I encourage my email address is at the bottom of this slide that's up right now. Please feel free. I'm going to be using, excuse me, the information I'm using in my conversation is going to be, it's pulled from a number of amazing resources that I'm going to be referencing, and I'm happy to share any of those, my list of resources with you if you email and let me know that you're interested in that, or simply just to connect about furthering this conversation and how it looks for your life, or how it looks in your workplace, or, you know, bringing some kind of conversation like this into your workplace. Please reach out and send me an email, and I'd be really happy to connect with you over anything to do with any of this. Okay, I think that is everything for my kind of housekeeping. We are going to dive right in to some definitions. I think it's important, maybe, anyways, if I can, there we go. I want us all to be clear on what we mean when we're talking about adversity, stress, and traumatic stress. And the way that we're going to have this conversation, I try to make this as engaging as possible. I'm going to share some of my own story around how I experienced adversity and stress in my own life, and how that process turned into growth opportunities for me personally, but also professionally and in a leadership role. I think that when we can give a concept or an idea, a real life story and a face and a person, it's just more relatable and understandable. And it helps us to be able to reflect on and explore how maybe the same types of events or stressful events may influence or impact us in our own lives. And so I will be sharing some things that trigger warning. There are some sensitive, I have a sensitive picture that I will share in a slideshow as part of my story. And I just want to, again, invite you to do what you need to do to take care of yourself if you're feeling a strong emotional reaction to anything that I am presenting. So first, I have just indicated here what we're talking about when we talk about stress. For somebody to be experiencing stress, we're talking about a measurable physiological response, right? So leading into this, my heart was like pounding out of my chest. I was like super fidgety. I could feel my breath like getting shallower. And I kind of get this lightweight feeling, like this light feeling in my head, like I'm floating or something, right? So Hannah's body scan really helped me to come back into my body and to really be present. So that's what I mean by a physiological response. Some people, we can have headaches, we can have stomach aches, right, in response to something that's stressful. A desire to avoid the situation. So we want to, procrastination would be an example of this, right? We're avoiding something that causes us to feel maybe anxious or nervous or worried. So we try to avoid altogether. And then a sense of a loss of control, that we don't have control over the current stressor. And so in order for a person to be experiencing stress, we have to have all of these things going on simultaneously. And so sound familiar? This is something I think all of us are feeling on a daily basis right now, right? So our stress response, I'm not gonna do like a full out biology or anatomy lesson, but I think it's important for us just to have a basic understanding. And again, if anybody wants to delve a little deeper into these kinds of concepts, please reach out. So our stress response, what I want you to know that's so important, it's a survival instinct, and it helps us stay safe from danger. So it is a healthy thing. It is something that is necessary for us to be surviving and thriving and procreating. Okay. It distributes all of our energy resources to systems in our body and brain that need to be functioning at highest capacity for us to survive in the face of a threat. And that has to do with a release of stress hormones in our body. And it allows us to act now and think later. So if you can kind of think about what kinds of systems we might need to physically keep ourselves safe from a threat, our muscles need energy and resources. The part of our brain that like thinks through like strategizing and prioritizing and in the face of a real life-threatening situation, we don't need that part of our brain. We need the part of our brain that allows us to act and not think through steps, strategies, consequences, right? So that part of our brain shuts down. That's also the part of our brain where we're able to learn, and it allows us to retain information. It gives us language. So that part of our brain is not needed for survival. So when our stress response is activated, it impacts how we're able to even learn new information and how we're able to function. As I said, it's a necessary and healthy mechanism that's built in and hardwired in us, because as long as it is flexible and adaptable and we're able to be regulated. So our systems are designed to have this healthy stress response and reaction for a snippet of time, very short period of time. It allows us to get out of harm's way, keep ourselves safe. And then what happens is we regulate again, which means that physiological reaction that we had where we're all adrenaline strong, like just we go, and then we kind of step back and we start to like calm a little, and then we realize what happened and we can think through it. So a healthy regulated system allows us to go into that stress response when necessary, when there's a legitimate life-threatening situation that we need to keep ourselves safe from. And then it allows us to go back into a regulated state, and it allows us to go in and out of that state as needed for actual danger. But what happens is when we have high levels of stress, so that overproduction of those hormones, and when that's experienced over a prolonged period of time, that can have serious effects on our health and well-being, our brains and our bodies, and our regulation. So what happens then is that we can get very stuck in our stress response to where we're feeling heightened more than we are not, right? And we end up having these false alarms where, the email from school is not a life-threatening situation for me, but when I get it and it says, okay, we're going to do more virtual, I have a stress response to that because I think to myself, can I handle more of this at-home stuff? Like, I'm struggling as it is. Like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, right? That's my stress response. My physiological reaction is very present, but there's no danger to keep me in that state, right? So that's detrimental to our systems, and that's what all of us are feeling right now, I think, more than not. So adversity stress and traumatic stress, we all have a different threshold or tipping point, right? So this is how we collectively are going through an event that is the same event, but we all respond very differently. And there are a number of reasons for that. There are, I have some listed, I think in one of my other slides. Oh no, I listed it right here. We have different thresholds and tipping points, I kind of refer to that as, for managing stress based on a number of biological, genetic, and environmental factors. And when our systems become overwhelmed by stress, we perceive a threat to our sense of safety, well-being, and connection. And we feel helpless to control the threat to safety, well-being, or connection. We lack certainty of the outcome, so that we might not be able to see an end in sight, or we don't know how things are going to end up. We know we might feel stuck, and we enter, and when we get to that point, especially over prolonged periods of time, we're entering into a traumatic stress response. And traumatic stress, all of stress is a physiological, emotional, psychological reaction, and impact. So our thoughts, our feelings, and behaviors are all impacted in a way that impairs our ability to function at our optimal or a baseline level. And when we really get into that traumatic stuff, we're talking about, we start to question our core beliefs about ourselves, about others in the world. And these are typically beliefs about our safety and well-being, and the safety and well-being of others. It is about our responsibility. It's my fault, right? So guilt and shame are some really big themes that come with traumatic experiences for people. And oftentimes as well, a lack of ability to trust ourselves, our judgment, and feeling a sense of powerlessness and not having any control. So those are typically the themes where we're going to start to question beliefs that we have held for much of our lives. Here, I'm going to share with you how I'm putting all of this together in my own traumatic stress timeline. And so this is where I'm going to share with you some of the things that, and again, this is different from what we're in right now. And I want us to be able to apply all of this to the current situation we're in. I certainly understand that this situation, my situation, is different from what we're experiencing, but the underlying themes are very parallel. And so that's why I'm using my experience and my story to try to help all of you to kind of reflect on how your life has been impacted by the past 9+ months. So back in January of 2017, the day before my daughter's first birthday, my 3 young children and I and my dog rolled our van off of a retaining wall in the country. I didn't have my phone with me. We were stuck in the van. There was a burning smell. Excuse me. Excuse me. I had a very physiological response that caused me to start trying to break a window. When I smelled something burning, I thought that the van was catching on fire and we were stuck in it and couldn't get out. And I was, the sticky notes that I have here. So you can see my timeline. I have the rollover was the event, right? And the date. Underneath that, I have some experiences, some emotions, some physiological, some physical, some emotional experiences, and things that I had as a result of each event, and even compounded. So the sticky notes, you'll see, these are the beliefs that I had questioned in the midst of that adversity and traumatic event. So for that rollover, we got out, everybody was okay. The van was not on fire. However, at the time, I said to myself that the things that were unconsciously going through my head and continued to kind of linger in my mind after that event. I'm helpless to protect my kids from danger. I can't trust my judgment in keeping my kids safe. And I'm a bad mom. Those are like, certainly I look at these now and I'm like, there's no factual information behind this, right? That's what stress does to us. It does not allow us to be reasonable because, again, it shuts off the part of our brain that would allow us to be logical and reasonable about something. So 10 months later, right? But I still had experiences of memories, nightmares, doubts in my ability to keep my kids safe, which then caused so much panic and anxiety a lot of the time. 10 months later, I'm 24 weeks pregnant with my 4th and final child. I have 3 little ones at home. I went into labor and ended up having to spend the remainder of my pregnancy in the hospital in Madison. The rest of my family and my support system were all here in Monroe. So I felt isolated. I felt separated. I felt extreme fear, helplessness, uncertainty. Like, I don't know how this is going to end, but I know it's not going to end in a good way, because either way, there's going to be huge hurdles that we have to get over. My thoughts, I had no control over my body or my situation. I'm helpless to protect my baby from danger. I can't trust my body or myself. This is my fault. I did this. So I stayed in the hospital for 2 months with my daughter. And then in December, so 2 months after I had been isolated in the hospital by myself, I had a partial placental abruption, and my daughter, Lennon, her heart rate showed signs of distress. And so I had to be induced. And that all happened in a 2-day span. So the December 10th through the 12th, and she was born on the 12th. It was a pretty traumatic birth experience. She was born at 31 weeks. And so we spent 5 weeks in the NICU. Thoughts that were kind of the result of this adversity and traumatic stress for me. My kids aren't going to be okay. I'm not going to be okay. We're not going to be okay. And none of us are safe, and this is my fault. Which then, equates to I'm a bad mom and I'm a bad human. Oh, and also that lack of control. I had no control over anything. Nothing was going to be okay, and I was not in control, and I was helpless and I was hopeless. So then we spend 5 weeks in the NICU, and we go home in mid-January, the day before my other daughter turned 2. I was scared out of my mind, and now I didn't have the monitors and the nurses, the professionals to keep my daughter safe and alive. And as you remember in one of my previous sticky notes here, I am helpless to protect my daughter from danger, and I can't trust my own judgment and I can't keep my kids safe, right? So I still have these beliefs, these core beliefs that have been rocked. And I'm at home with a baby who's very vulnerable and has chronic lung disease. And so this is never going to end. I must have done something to deserve all of this. I'm a bad person, right? Because what happens next, 9 days later, we end up in the PICU, and she was in respiratory distress. There was a code called. It was incredibly scary. I had mastitis severely and could hardly even open my eyes. This is never going to end. I don't think I can do this. I'm not a good mom. I was hypervigilant. I was fearful. I thought she was going to die at any moment. Even when I had her at home with me, I'm like, I can't do this, right? So we get home. We spend about 10 days in the PICU in Madison. We get home, and again, I don't think I can do this. This is so overwhelming. I don't think I can handle this. I don't have a sense of safety. I don't have power or control over anything. I can't trust my judgment or myself, and I can't trust the world, right? So we're home for a short while. We're home. We got home 2 days before her actual due date, and found out that she was physically abused by a nurse in the NICU when she was 2 weeks old. And so that process began on February 16th, and it went all the way through. And so February 16th of 2018, it went all the way through to February 20th of 2020. And that entire time, up until February 20th of 2020, I was in what I refer to as a trauma fog. I was those parts of my brain. So all these physiological responses from being exposed to high levels of stress for that long. I was experiencing symptoms that really interfered with my ability to just live my life and form happy, healthy relationships with people around me, including my children, especially my children, because what I learned was it wasn't safe to connect and attach to my children, because my greatest fear that felt like reality to me was that I could not keep them safe. And so I was of no use to them, and I was only going to hurt them rather than helping them. So this is how I'm tying together all of these themes for you to show you how I experienced this level of traumatic stress over a long period of time. These pictures are of my daughter, and this is actually on February 20th of 2020 is when I started moving into my growth opportunity. And it's because I stood up in front of a courtroom, and for the first time, I shared my story and my experience in an impactful way. And so this quote came straight out of my impact statement. And this represents my trauma for me. So this is what my trauma, it's if I could package it up in a neat little paragraph, this is what it would be. And these are the flashbacks and memories I would have. These are the images, these are the thoughts and feelings I took away from the experience, okay? So I take the elevator down and I walk through the long hallway that's lined up with glass display cases, and I cry, some nights hysterically, as I feel the guilt of leaving my baby and the guilt of not being there for my other children, tearing me in two. I remember reciting the NICU nurse's reassuring words to ground myself and keep myself moving toward the parking ramp. This is the safest place to leave your baby. So after learning she was abused, and there's a picture here where I took pictures of her bruising because I saw it and it raised some flags, and I spoke up and questioned it with medical staff, and it was dismissed, and I didn't speak up again. And so I carried a lot of guilt and shame. I didn't do what I was supposed to do to protect her. It just exacerbated all of these other previous events, right? So moving into my traumatic growth opportunity, and what is traumatic growth? So it's a concept that was developed in about the mid-1990s. And what it says is that when we endure psychological struggle following adversity, we can often see positive growth afterwards that wouldn't have been able to take place without that adverse situation. So in looking at my situation, people develop new understandings of themselves, the world they live in, and how to relate to other people, and the kind of future they might have, and a better understanding of how to live life. So for my situation, I was rocked to the core, right? So my understanding of myself and the world and other people was completely dismantled. And then there was a period of time where I had an opportunity to rebuild that in a way that allows me to make more impact and to be a stronger, healthier person, and a better mom, and a better therapist, and a better wife and friend, and all of these things, the best version of myself, more than before 2017, when my world was kind of turned upside down. So traumatic growth versus resilience, I want to just note the difference here, that when we talk about resilience, that's a personal attribute or ability to bounce back from a difficult or traumatic situation. And when we talk about traumatic growth, we're talking about in order to achieve traumatic growth, or to even have an opportunity for traumatic growth, you're required to be in a situation where you have a hard time bouncing back after a traumatic experience. You have some kind of psychological struggle and challenges to your core beliefs. And that can actually be severe enough to cause PTSD, anxiety, panic disorders, depression. For me, I do have a diagnosis of PTSD. And that is just the level of severity that my ability to function and to live my best life, that's the severity of how that impaired my functioning, my ability to function at my baseline level or at my highest potential. And so ultimately, we find a sense of personal growth through a process that takes a lot of time and energy and struggle. So like I said, I was in this fog, and I was just kind of repeating patterns, and I wasn't aware of it. And I'm a therapist. And that's why I like to share this with people. I'm a therapist. At first, I'm human, right? Like I'm a therapist second or third or fourth or whatever. But first, I'm a human. No one is immune to any of this. It doesn't matter who we are. We are all impacted by high levels of stress over prolonged periods of time. And not to mention, yes, we have COVID going on. We have political, conflict and just distress over politics going on. We've got social movement and inclusivity, stress and pain. There's pain and suffering everywhere. We all feel it. We all feel it. And it impacts every single one of us, maybe just in different ways. But it's something that we are all commonly connected in and experiencing differently. And we simply cannot avoid that. No matter who we are, no matter what kind of resources we have, internal, external resources, we cannot escape this reality right now. And so let me actually, so finding a sense of personal growth in the midst of this that none of us are able to escape. And like I said, sorry, I chased a squirrel. So my 2017 to 2020, when we're talking about a process of time and energy and struggle, that was almost 3 years for me. That was a long period of time. I was high functioning. I mean, I looked high functioning on the outside, and I could go through my days, but I didn't have depth in connection or quality of life and relationships the way I do now. And the way that I have that now is even more profound, and has more depth than it did before 2017, when I went into this entire kind of whirlwind. And so that's what we're talking about in traumatic growth. And so traumatic growth in leadership, what I found first looks like our personal growth. And those things have to come together. So for me, because the nature of my trauma was my attachment, my relationship with my kids, and my inability to give them what they needed in my mind, I focused more on work. And this is a trauma response that I think many of us do unknowingly, but I just was like hustling and grinding and just staying in my work mind, because my emotional mind and my attachment mind, my relationship mind was too painful, that the thoughts, the feelings, the experiences, those were too painful for me to sit in and revisit. And my brain and my body said, nope, protect yourself from that. You can't go there. That's going to hurt you. So I focused on, well, I'm going to build this great place that helps other people heal, because that's going to, me be helping through healing and all of this stuff. But the piece I was missing, I was trying to grow professionally and in a leadership role, but I wasn't growing personally in the way that I needed to be actually making a difference and coming into my full potential, my full leadership potential, in the ability to achieve the goals I was really trying to achieve. So we have to have this congruence. We have to practice what we preach. We have to be the change we want to see. And so we first have to find a sense of personal growth, and then that will just kind of naturally and organically flow into our other roles. And so instead of asking, how will we recover from these painful times, we ask ourselves, how will we be changed by them? We're not going to fully recover, and because recovery implicates a level of, normalcy, we won't go back. There is no normal. We won't go back to what we were before this. Neither should we be striving to do that, because we have an opportunity to actually improve ourselves, our systems, our community. So when we reframe that question, when we ask ourselves a new question, how will we be changed by what is happening right now? How will we be changed by the struggle and the adversity and the pain and the suffering we're going through? And we look at these different parts. I took these domains and components out of an actual inventory that measures traumatic growth. And so in these areas, like, how will we be changed? How can I look at an appreciation of life, relationships with others, new possibilities in life, personal strength, spiritual change? How will I be changed in these ways in my life? What core beliefs have, number one, been impacted by the adversity and the traumatic stress? And how could they potentially change for the better? And what I want to say too is there's a timing for this. So I want to be very mindful. Toxic positivity is an actual thing. So we are not looking at dismissing, like, oh, you know what? This stuff is all fine and dandy because we're all going to grow and be stronger and better. And, so don't even worry about what's going on. We're going to get through this and everything's gonna be great. That's very dismissive of our experience. In order for us to even enter into a growth space, we have to first acknowledge and accept our pain, our suffering, our loss, our grief, and our fears. We have to allow ourselves to understand the impact that it's had on us and on others. And we have to be in a space that that we are not denying ourselves of understanding the reality of how we've been harmed and impacted by everything. And I can give you an example of when I was in the hospital for 2 months and I was isolated. I think that was the deepest, darkest depression I ended up going into. I was, to talk about like, you know, physical distancing. I was in a hospital room by myself for 2 months. And then even after that, another 5 weeks in the NICU. At least, you know, Lennon was there, but that was a whole different dynamic. So additional 5 weeks, and then an additional 10 days in the PICU. That was a lot of disconnection and isolation. And I had a couple of friends come and visit me a few times. And one of the times, I love my friend dearly. We have had this we've had a conversation about this since, but at the time, so she is like super into love and light and mindfulness. And that is a common thing that we have in terms of practicing mindfulness and self-growth. And so she had the best of intentions. She came in while I was dead in the middle of this long hospital stay. And I was at my most vulnerable point in like, I don't know if I can hang on anymore. And she had like I said, best of intentions. Well, have you been doing your like mindfulness activities? That's going to help you so much. And my reaction to that was like, you can take your mindfulness activities and shove them, you know, I'm going to cut it there because I don't want to get inappropriate, but that is an example of using timing in a way that, because for me, I wasn't in a space where I could, like, no amount of mindfulness practice is going to alleviate what I'm going through in this moment. And that almost feels dismissive of what I'm going through. It feels minimizing. And so I want to make sure that I'm communicating clearly that there's a balance between these things and that we have to be mindful of timing and experience and impact, and understanding that impact for everybody looks very different. So that's my lecture on that. And I'm hoping I can show you a little bit of my traumatic growth here. So my traumatic growth, what it looked like in my first year after, this is Lennon, that right here under the traumatic growth text. And what happened for me when I moved into a growth space, so after I shared my story, I used my voice, I shared my story. Well, and this was actually even before I shared my story, but so this was in the first year of like, this was within the first year after the whole thing happened. What traumatic growth for me looked like, I didn't know it was growth at the time. It was all I could do to like just make something positive out of a situation I couldn't make sense of, right? So I was trying to make this meaning around it that gave it purpose. And so what I was able to do, we raised over $5,000 for the March of Dimes the year that Lennon was born. And we also participated in 2 generosity days and made hope stones for families in the NICU. I also was able to, my core beliefs throughout my growth process, this definitely was not timing wise, this doesn't match, but I just wanted to illustrate over the course of the couple of years, and especially since this past May, I was able to shift some of those thoughts. If you remember my sticky notes, I was able to shift some of those thoughts and to change them into core beliefs that actually help me more than hurt me. And they're more accurate and based in truth and fact and reality. So instead of saying that I can't trust myself in my body, it totally sabotaged this pregnancy, and it turned on me, and it, you know, almost killed my baby. And so instead, I was able to see and to feel and believe. My body responded to a really unpredictable anomaly in the most protective way possible. And that allowed for a miracle to occur in keeping Lennon 2 more months with me, which allowed her the best possible outcome, because being born at 24, 25, 26 weeks, statistically speaking, that's what was supposed to happen. Was she was supposed to be born by 27 weeks, like very close to 100% of situations and conditions like mine ended up like that. I don't know how, but my body performed a miracle. It did not abandon me, and it did not turn on me. It actually protected her from being born as a micro preemie. And I was able to, we had like a 5-week NICU stay, and we could have had like a 5-month NICU stay. That's a little exaggerated, but it would have been a very long time, and it would have been a very scary thing too. So I was able to see that and shift that perspective as my growth continued. Being a good mom doesn't require perfection. It requires love and presence. And I am now capable of those things. And I was also able to say and believe, we are all safe right now. And we have all of the internal and external resources that we need to handle the adversities that we are absolutely going to continue to face throughout our lives. And when I say we, I'm talking about my family, my husband and our 4 children and myself. So I want us to maybe just take the opportunity to connect with a few others and reflect on everything I've shared so far. I know I compacted like a lot of big things in a short period of time. But I want us just to reflect right now on ourselves, and reflecting on adversity, stress, traumatic stress, especially traumatic growth in relation to your own personal experience in the last 9-ish months. You're going to just think about, how have I experienced the negative effects of stress? So whether that's physical, emotional, psychological, like your beliefs, and then kind of even going a little bit further into that. So which of my own core beliefs have been challenged and how? So considering myself and others in the world, and the themes that you might want to think about, as I illustrated in my story: safety and control and power, my sense of responsibility, what's my fault versus what is out of my control, and judgment and trust of ourselves, of others, and the world. And then the final piece is, where do I identify my own personal growth opportunities as a result of the adversity that I've experienced over the past 9-ish months with what's going on in our world and community. And I've listed these aspects that I reviewed earlier just as some guidance and prompt in case you're needing it. I can certainly copy and paste this. I know this is going to be too hard for you guys to just like remember off the top of your head when you're in your breakout rooms. So I can copy and paste this into the chat. And I don't know, Victoria, for this first breakout session, how many minutes do we have this set for?
Let's take about 5 to 7 minutes in the breakout sessions. And first off, I just want to say thank you for sharing this. I think this is a good reminder for us as leaders. Everybody goes through a lot going on, and so this is a good reminder. We will do 5 to 7 minutes in breakout sessions. We'll get that started in a minute, so you will get a heads up, and we will put the questions in the chat, so you'll have that in the breakout sessions. And it'll just take a minute. I am going to pause the recording for the breakout. Yeah, and we did have a question come in the chat about appreciation for what's being shared, and what you've been sharing really striking a chord. And just so everybody knows, the slideshow, the PowerPoint and everything will be posted online, and the session will be recorded, so people will have access to that. So I see people coming back from the breakout rooms. Breakout conversations are always a fantastic time to connect with people. So welcome back, everybody. I know people have their mics on, so it's great that you had a great conversation. I'm going to turn it back over to Megan.
Thank you. Thank you guys for taking some time to reflect on that. And also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, anything that I put out there for you to reflect on or to bring into conversation, it's always an invitation, which means you have a choice to accept it or to decline it based on what's best for you. So I just wanted to make sure I framed that, and I should have done that before, but I want to move into how we apply traumatic growth then to our other roles in our life. So like I said, first it starts with our personal experience, right? And then we're going to take it a step farther. And so we're saying, again, how will we be changed by this? Not how are we going to recover? How will we be changed? Then we take it a step further and we're going to ask, how will we use our experiences to influence, inspire, and facilitate positive growth and change in others and in our larger systems, our businesses, our organizations, our communities, our faith communities, any system, large, medium, small, in and around our circles. And so what that takes is taking our own personal growth experiences and then connecting empathy and compassion, common humanity, and courage and vulnerability. And relationships are key to creating change. If you think about any big changes in your life, I'm sure you can identify some very, very supportive relationships that helped you to facilitate that change. And so that's what we're looking at, is respecting the diversity in how we are responding to this common experience or event, and also finding the common humanity in that and using that as a bond. So I want to share with you, I'm going to go a little bit quicker, but like I said, please feel free to reach back out. So I come back to this because I just want to, this slide, I'm not going to spend time on it, but this sentence, traumatic growth, I'm finishing it now. Traumatic growth is a process. So now what my traumatic growth looks like in terms of leadership. So once I focused on my personal growth and I was able to really help myself heal, that was in the context of this team that you see in this picture here, Avenues Counseling. The relationships and the community and the support they provided me on a daily basis was what it was ultimately the vehicle to my healing and transformation, my growth. And in doing that, it allowed us to create a business that has been very successful and growing more rapidly than what we had anticipated. We've been able to get through some significant hurdles. I was able to be a part of Greene County Leaders last year. I spoke at and shared my story at 2 different events, one at University of Minnesota in August, the Child Abuse Summit, and then Crimes Against Children Conference that was out of Dallas. I was able to be a part of that as well in August. I've spoken at the Monroe Clinic to the residency program on 2 different occasions now. And then I actually, Colony Brands has supported me in my fellowship of infant, early childhood, family mental health, which is going to bring some amazing services to our community that we have never really known the power of. And then the reason that I have these 2 pictures to the left is just to show, that's where it all started, was with the relationships and healing myself and my family. And this picture on the bottom, I have a podcast now where I am talking about all of this in our community and am talking about many of the things we're talking about now. So creating connection and community through courage, compassion, and common humanity. This quote comes from an amazing book that I just came across called Together. And I think this is important. Take a picture with your phone if you'd like to, but I know Victoria said this will be available after today too, but healthy relationships are as essential as vaccines and ventilators for our global recovery. This pandemic isn't the first time, and it won't be the last time that our social connections are tested, but it is rare for the whole world to face such a grave challenge simultaneously. For all of our differences, our shared experience is itself a bond. We will have this memory in common for the rest of our lives. And if we learn from this moment how to be better together, we won't just endure this crisis, we will thrive. Oops. So what the world needs now, oh, great. Sorry, guys. What the world needs now is Love, Sweet Love, right? So this book is about hidden impact of loneliness and disconnection on our health, and that it's a root cause and contributor of so many of the epidemics we see: alcohol and drug addictions, depression, anxiety, and violence. And these will long outlive the COVID pandemic, right? Loneliness and disconnection impacts our work performance, how our kids experience school and learning, and the sense of division and polarization in our society. Humans are social creatures. In this simple and obvious fact lies both the problem and the solution to our current crisis of loneliness. At the center of our loneliness is our innate desire to connect. We have evolved to participate in community, to forge lasting bonds with others, to help one another, and to share life experiences. We are simply better together. And, hopefully this is still showing. And I'm going to wrap up quickly, but I want to point out these slides that I would encourage you to go back to, because they're going to give you some actionable steps for what you can do in shifting into, again, respect your timing and your process, because you might not be ready to reflect on potential growth opportunities yet. You may still be in a process of grieving and just understanding how you've been impacted by this. So please don't force yourself to push too quickly ahead. These are, be the change you wish to see in the world. So lead by example, spend time with those you love, focus on each other, embrace solitude, help and be helped. These are actionable steps you can start taking to work on your own personal growth and change. And then this slide here, be the change in your leadership role. These are actionable steps you can take in your leadership role after you have kind of achieved this personal growth. You can take these what you've learned and apply them to these three ways to bring these concepts, traumatic growth, into your organization or your circle or your team, your business, the community. You're going to ask yourself, so you're going to frame for yourself, how will we grow through this together? And then I give some things to reflect on there. Affirm values, team members in the organization. You want to link words and actions. So what are our guiding principles and why? How do we live those every day? And that creates a shared sense of purpose. And then we want to emphasize community by building meeting times and all of meeting times and check-ins and and allowing people to be imperfect and messy in their process. Breakout session number 2, I would encourage you to just reflect on yourselves outside of the session, since I kind of overdid my time limit here. And then Say Something is a book written by Peter Reynolds. It's a children's book, and it's one of my favorites. And there are a number of quotes here that I took out of it, but the most powerful and my favorite is this last one here, and it's the last page of the book. Your voice can inspire, heal, and transform. Your voice can change the world. Are you ready to say something? This is the biggest takeaway from my traumatic growth process. Hoping you could still see my screen here with my PowerPoint screen. And I am going to very quickly transition. I apologize for my haste and my quickness here, but I'm going to transition over to Bridget with SWCAP. And Bridget is a great resource to continue conversation about common humanity and civility and all of these things as well. She has a lot to contribute to that conversation. And so I would invite you to potentially reach out to her to have more conversation about these things too. But Bridget, I'm going to let you take it over with the mental health updates. And thank you all so very much from the depths of my heart for holding space for me today and allowing me to show up in my vulnerability and share my very deep and intense experiences and story with all of you.
Yeah, Megan, I hope everybody can hear me. And if you can hear me, can you put a thumbs up? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Occasionally I have problems with that. I just want to say very quickly that that's very powerful. And it actually, what Megan, you talked about has a lot to do, and you know this because you're helping us to plan a summit. But our behavioral health partnership always holds a summit. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I wanted just put a couple of things in front of everybody today that really align with what Megan talked about, what Hannah did with us, and just the overall things we're learning with the Behavioral Health Partnership about what's important for mental health and stress and all of the things we've been through this year. So currently, we are working in our 5-county area, the SWCAP counties, which are Grant, Greene, Iowa, Lafayette, and Richland counties, to do a media campaign, basically. We don't have the fancy name, I guess, is Healthy Neighbors Caring Communities, and that's a Southwest Regional Planning Commission. I just want to make people aware, and if you want to be a part of this, this is going to be a free resource available on our Behavioral Health Partnership site, and it aligns a lot with what Megan just talked about, those last 4 things that from that book she talked about. This is kind of a view of what one of those, I'm hoping you can see it. Is my slide showing up?
Your slide is showing up. If you could put that in the view mode, that would be great.
I don't know that it will work on for whatever reason,
That's okay. You can keep going.
Yeah, I think I'll just, for the sake of time. So we've got the messages we're putting out there are very much the same. They're the positive social interaction, affection, all these critical things, and to keep us in a positive, future-focused mindset on things that will reduce our sense of stress and burnout. So there will be multiple platforms. We're working with Judy Bowl at Big Radio and others across the 5 counties to put some of this out. But again, these will be available for you to download as posters, to send out as social media blasts, and help spread the word and get little bite-sized chunks out into people's consciousness. So another resource we have that's really powerful is this Southwestern Wisconsin Network of Care site that we put out earlier this year. We're going to be doing a little bit more campaigning around this alongside of the media campaign, so that people have access to places like Megan and her Avenues Counseling, but all kinds of other resources, warm lines, things that will help keep us as connected as we can and as mentally healthy as we can over the course of this winter, which is going to be a real interesting time. So we want to keep ourselves as resilient as possible. It's a really good resource. So just in case you want to, I'll probably share this again, and you'll see it hopefully coming from Victoria. And then this is the upcoming Behavioral Health Summit. We've just had our first meeting and talked about some of the key topics and themes that we want to, and we've really picked traumatic growth as a central theme. It may be part of a bigger concept, but the idea of capitalizing on what we've learned in 2020, which is we're all able to be anxious, we're all able to be hit by stress and what it feels like to be in that place. So we have a better understanding of trauma going forward as communities. And that's going to be critical to how we move forward on helping people in our communities that do struggle with mental health issues, including ourselves. So that's really, the summit will tackle that. We will likely have an adaptive leadership segment as well. And I'm hoping I get a yes when I invite Steve Cara. He's with the Millennial Action Project, and he's from Wisconsin originally. He's really pretty astounding with how he's capitalized on all of these kind of radical empathy and radical love, and helping people to bridge this political, what we've really experienced this year for sure, this political divide, to bring communities together, to find common ground on doing things in communities that can make a real difference. So just keep this in mind. The date may change depending on which keynote speakers we're able to get. But right now we're penciling in February 19th, and it will be a virtual conference. And we'll be using an avatar-based technology so that when people are there, it's not just zoomed to death, We'll be kind of walking around and meeting people and sitting at tables with people and having actual conversations with kind of like-minded people, or going in search of people that we want to talk with, but it'll feel like we're walking around a space, sort of. So that'll be fun. And really, I think it'll be quite a conference or quite a summit. So keep your eyes and ears open for that, and just hold that date for now. Hopefully that's the date, February 19th. And that's what I got. Thank you. And thank you again, Megan and Victoria and Hannah.
So thanks for joining us, everybody. The next Greene County Leader session is on Wednesday, January 13. We will be looking at leadership and civility. Next week, you will be getting additional resources on the topics we discussed, and the PowerPoints, the recordings, everything will be on next week. So thank you for joining. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I am going to go ahead and stop the recording now.